Nathan.
Um, my name, my name's Nathan Allison, and I'm student delegate. Present, sorry.
William Vice President.
Oh, no.
Ashley was present.
Patrick Cervera, present.
Stephanie Panetta, present.
Caroline is present. We have online.
Maria Garcia present.
Sorry, yeah. Ricardo is online, although did not say announce it. Moving forward with the reading of the mission statement, do we have any volunteers? Mr. Phelps?
To support the evolving needs of the MSU Denver students by advocating in their best interest to enhance the university experience and opportunities.
Thank you so much. Move forward for the approval of the agenda being we have here laid out before us, likewise on the screen. Do we have any approval or changes?
Yeah, I want to note for you guys that we started a little bit late, so that's one thing, but also I plan to speak about 5 minutes or less during adoption of the minutes today, which would give a little bit more time in housekeeping. That's within the discretion of presiding chair Patrick here. It's an FYI, I don't necessarily know that we need a motion to mention, but just FYI.
I think it'd be fine if we just, minutes, if you don't have to add it, since we read this minutes.
I'll motion for the adoption of the agenda.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Okay, is there any oppositions? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. With the agenda. Now we move forward the previous meeting minutes and we have presented what we put out on our.
So I want to note for people, there's two different sets of minutes that were linked to the agenda, one from last week and one from the week before that. I believe the intention was to approve both. Whichever one you'd like to start with, Steve.
Start with 2-9.
You scroll through.
That is our meeting minutes that we have. First version. Yes, Scott?
Yeah, I'll motion for the adoption of the minutes. I asked that it's seconded and then we enter into debate once the motion. I make that motion to adopt.
Do we have a second to adopt the? Okay. We have any, we got entered into a debate? No, first one.
Yeah, there's just a few.
Next.
Maria, were you seeking recognition involved? Okay, I'll go, yeah. I just want to note that the meeting minutes still says meeting agenda at the top. As well as there's some motions that are mentioned in the document that doesn't say whether or not they pass or not. I think it'd be really good if we had it, written down that they passed and how they passed on our minutes. And so I would object to the minutes today. And I would be voting no. I just want to note that before we vote.
Two codes.
The biggest issues is knowing whether or not certain motions pass, but
Yeah, I think so. Like my sort of view of minutes is like the fundamental, most basic thing needs to happen on minutes: attendance, and motions, who made them, who seconded them, and how anything. I think some of the sort of finer points of our discussion can sort of be, at the discretion of the note taker. But I do think that at the bare minimum, we need to have whether or not our motions passed, whether or not legislation passed, that sort of things. Yeah, I think we should just give our executive assistant some more time to work on these February 9th minutes between now and next meeting. Maybe go back and rewatch the YouTube video to get a more accurate recollection of what happened in our February 9th.
Maria, online?
Yeah, I just wanted to let you all know that if you're sharing something on the screen, I can only see the meeting agenda right now.
Looking at clarification, the meeting minutes from February 9th is still titled meeting agenda. I think that's what you're being tripped up on. That was one of the things that needed to be changed.
Yeah, I mean like the screen sharing right now for virtual.
As Kevin said, yeah. Okay. There we go. Sorry, Maria.
All good?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This guy saying that there's missing motions regarding it. Is there anyone else that has to go through this document? Inside? I will, like entertain any motions.
Good clarification, because we're in a motion right now, so we're,
Let me,
yeah.
if there's any more discussion. Okay, so there's more discussion. Now enter to voting. Who is opposed to approval of the meeting minutes of Monday, February?
Aye.
Sanchez? Any in favor? All right. Seeing as we had 0 in favor, 3 abstentions, and 3 no's, motion is denied. Is that? We can find this. Let's go to February 16th. This is the one, Scott, you said you have another version.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So there's a version that was linked on the agenda. And then there's also this version that's the document being presented now. And then there's a version that I created. There are 3 different ones floating in the ether.
You'll just review this one first.
Yeah, I'm happy to review this one. You want me to give discussion on it?
I was thinking we just look at it with everyone else.
Yeah.
I'll do it and I'll enter to moment of discussion. Scott.
Yeah, just because in general, it's some similar stuff from the last one as well. I will say there are quite a few motions that were made in our February 16th meeting. They're not reported whatsoever in the meeting minutes. We took a stance on the digital literacy requirement last week. That was not reported in the meeting minutes. We appointed Patrick and Faye to lead the new ad hoc committee we created on the RFP. And that was not recorded in the minutes that we appointed them, or that every counselor would be a member of that committee. That wasn't recorded. There were quite a few, also the, what you call it, the attendance is not accurate for that. And some of the other motions, are noted as being made by one person if they're actually made by a different person. And the votes are not, mentioned. So I did, go through and took about 2 hours to rewatch our meeting this weekend. Because it's available in our teams. And I made a set of meeting minutes that I would hope to be like an example for future sets of meeting minutes. I sent them to the council today when I finished them up. I would be happy if we present those and approve those, or we could table the consideration of the minutes, whichever one the council would like.
I like that you went through and did it, and like you built a set for, you can just see either one. But I don't necessarily feel comfortable for you, say, since somebody. Scott.
When I was looking through the heading, it's a couple pieces reference somewhat intelligent and kind of like very careful of what the business or because they that would be something about the sort of when they want to go discussion of the way that like something like that that two-sided occurring that we have shared no position on this, that they would be representing to faculty senate. And also, when we were talking about the lawn, and, yes, for the ad hoc lawn committee, we can have it, inviting children park and to speak to talk about the closure of the lawn administration and how student representation relates. And it just a little bit more to see how like it's a little bit of history bias and important reaching out to them. And it's not just about student representation, but yeah. And also there was a motion earlier when we were hearing the student board. The motion to approve the request was for me and not for this, so I feel like we just going back over it, like having to make sure that the motions were reported correctly, we get them for humans too.
Yeah, I do want to clarify, because I did write meeting minutes. I took a copy of Gideon's written meeting minutes, and I essentially amended them. And noted in the document, you can go look at the comments that I've made, sort of talk about why, the reason behind the amendments. I think it is the place in TSAC for when we consider the meeting minutes for us to then consider amendments to them. I had so many amendments that I would have had to make verbally that it would not have made sense in a meeting. That's why I drafted it. And so I think that it is clear to me, looking at the meeting minutes that were presented, that our executive assistant did not go back and rewatch the meeting to inform her note taking. And I don't know if that's the norm. I'm not her supervisor, but I really would like to ask Stephen if you could communicate with her that that's like an expectation to take a few hours outside the meeting as we do this in the future.
Noted.
I'll like that, and if any, like further in terms of like personnel, put beyond that session. Well,
I like the suggestion of, I mean, this is fine, I think it is, I'm gonna vote now to approve hers. And at least table the MSU for her to use as a training document to improve the she has.
Sky,
Yeah, I'm not gonna make a motion to that effect. That sounds like it makes the most sense. I motion to table the consideration of the approved minutes and to direct our executive assistant to revise them by our next meeting.
I will second that motion.
non-debate, series. No debate. Is there any oppositions to this motion? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes. We will table the approval of the meeting minutes of Monday, February 16th, 2026. So I'm moving forward with our public comment for 332. Seeing as we don't have anyone present as the at the moment, an individual council will provide them the time that has been allocated for them. Move forward with announcements and updates. I'm going to go with our staff. Stephen.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I have a few updates for everyone that, few updates. Update number one, as a reminder, applications to run in TSAC elections are available. The due date is March 7th. Next week, as a reminder, President Davidson will be coming to our meeting. So please be ready to engage in wonderful conversation with President Davidson. Finally, this is more of a informational for you all. Within CMEI, I shared this with the co-chairs last week. Student organization funding has been exhausted from CMEI. Along with those same lines, we have for now paused club funding applications that go through CMEI just until we can figure out a good solution. This is normal at many universities where club funding runs out. So what CMEI is doing in the short term is to fund clubs and organizations that, one, have not exhausted their funding allotments for this year, and two, who have already submitted some type of application for funding in CMEI. So we're going to continue with that. CMEI is going to figure out some creative ways to make sure these student organizations receive that funding. Secondly, I think this is a really good thing in a way because it shows that student engagement at MSU Denver has increased. Club engagement has also increased, which is very exciting. We are seeing more activities. The volume of activities is also very high as well. That said, I shared this with the budget committee, but I'm giving this to you all as the council, whether or not you want to deliberate about this or not. I think it would be really important and a really good thing if TSAC comes forth and finds a way to provide supplemental club funding for the remainder of the academic year. You have a pretty hefty roll forward, which I think is good. And you can always look at reallocating funds throughout the course of this semester to ensure clubs and organizations have an opportunity to be funded. That's a great way to advocate for these student organizations. I know some of you have taken on some additional work with clubs and organizations, whether it be storage, whether it be space issues, the JSSB lawn, the TSAC storage room, whatever that is. I think this is an opportunity for TSAC to show some advocacy for student clubs and organizations. Ultimately, the decision is yours. And I will tell you all, if you decide to go down that route, and I have shared this with the budget committee, I think it is really important for the budget committee to really consider what that club or funding process looks like and how to create maybe some temporary guidelines and procedures to make sure that clubs can receive funding in a relatively quick basis. And with that, that is my report.
One, are you, Stephen, are
But you
you,
don't get diarrhea because then it's a little hard to hold. Yeah.
Yeah, your mic's on there. Bye.
are you directing the student orgs to come to us?
We haven't done anything.
Okay.
So it is really up to CMEI, to TSAC to decide what you all want to do
Okay.
and how you want to move forward. What we are sending announcements out to student organizations is that funding has been exhausted. Applications have been paused for now, and that we are looking for a solution for them. And there are some alternatives that we're looking into.
And then my second question is related to the vice chair. Budget. Do you know how many, like how much money we have in that?
Not, I don't, not on the top of my head. However, given the fact that we have approved approximately about three organizations, I'm thinking two of them did not use the management. So I want to say around 1,100 to 1,200, estimating, not off the top of my head.
In total?
Yeah, 11,000.
Oh, okay.
So talking about 10,000s. So we might have input, however, depending on the student, we do have in place in our procedures for organizations to apply for funding. However, we would have to set that up a little bit differently. That's something that, the budget committee will begin looking into.
So I just, I think we should refer that conversation to the best way. Move on to this.
Dr. Brown, is there any more updates that you have?
Hi. No, the only additional update, or not update, I just wanted to add to what Stephen was sharing with you all just now about the budget. And just know that we are also looking at alternatives outside of CMEI through my budget as well to help support. And I know I offered that previously when we were talking about student organizations needing support with the situation with the lawn and all of that. And so that's what Stephen was talking about when he said we're looking for other alternative funding sources. So we're trying to figure that out as well. So just know that we're not just looking through CMEI, that I'm looking for other sources beyond that not just my own, to see if there are other ways that we can tap into other funding. And this request to see if you all have any opportunity to help support student orgs through this supplemental funding would be for now, just throughout the remainder of the year. So we're thinking probably like March, April, Mayish, half of May, whatever that is. There's not a whole lot that happens in the summer anyway. And then moving forward, we are really going to need to think more strategically about how we plan for funding for student orgs and thinking about how we're able to maximize the current budget that we have in light of recognizing that we're probably not going to get any more funding with the current financial situation that we're in as an institution. And I just want to throw it out there. It's not something that I love the idea of, but I know there have been lots of conversations about student fees and how we may need to think about those differently. But this is a space where I know we are severely underfunded and have been for a long, long time. But when we came back from COVID, and there wasn't this much engagement up until this year, which is like now we're really doing probably what we should have been doing a while ago, but things are going much, much better in terms of students wanting to be on campus and be present and participate, that I really want us to think more strategically beyond like the Band-Aid solution for right now, and be thought partners with all of you as student government, or around like what can we do to figure out how to advocate for more funding for student organizations more long term beyond this year. So I just wanted to add that to what Stephen said.
Thank you, Dr. Brown.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, moving forward with our standing committee updates. Scott?
Yeah, and sustainability. The Ouroboros initiative is in effect, and we are building up the task force. Our first meeting will be next week, Mondays at 5:30, so immediately after the TSAC meeting. I invite any and all counselors to attend. We'll likely only have members from the current council there because we're still recruiting. But we'll start talking about tabling during March for the runaround task force. And tabling for a student survey and the questions of like, how do we write this survey? So I encourage you all to be there and join the task force. We have decided to do it after our meetings to make it the most available time for everyone.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go for budget. The budget committee, we have about four student organizations lined up to present for us. That's for approval for funding, some of them for travels and events. Currently we are having them sign up to those agendas. I know my chairs and over their next step in the process, so we can move forward with it. So anybody in that committee, you would please attend those following ones, because we will be there to debate and discuss both. So that'll be interesting. Likewise, last week we met over like in a working session, looking at over the budget guidelines and procedures, specifically over section 9, and seeing things that we want to edit there and change. So it's somewhat productive. There are a lot of things that we noticed that sounded right, a lot of things that we could definitely add more to. So it's still work in progress. In addition to that, not much else. Sorry for budget. If there's any members that would like to add in.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the chairs, the budget, Mr. Irby, I would really like next week to have a full spreadsheet report, maybe even taking like 10 to 15 minutes from budget to give us like a state of the budget, where we at, what funds still have money in them, what funds are not on track to spend all their money, so we can think about reallocation. I also think that CNEI campus club funding budget running out is like textbook case rainy day fund for TSAC. So as we get closer to exhausting out the student works fund, I imagine we'll get a lot more applications in the next few 3 weeks. I would really want us to seriously consider making a reallocation of the support.
And I think that's kind of given, it's kind of given the updates we received right now for the budget. Definitely next week is going to definitely be interesting. So, Susanna?
I was talking to earlier about the student finance funding. I feel like we should start condemning the student funds, just because like I know we have then discussing about the conversation. But I think it will be a good collaboration as to figure besides anywhere, because I said, that's.
Absolutely. And I feel like those are the things that we can engage in the conversation that we need to conduct. Is there any updates or?
I think this is some sort of tangential, but I just wanted to mention it. I think we should invite Tony to our next TSAC meeting on Monday. I know it's when President Davidson's also coming, and so I want to figure out if we can fit Tony in as well. Tony did tell me today that she is available for our entire meeting, and so we could get her, a 30-minute slot, find one that's not going to President Davidson to talk about this issue. I'm very curious to have a report from her, but Stephen may also know the answer of like how much money does this fund like typical money give out to students? Because if I do want to think about the promoting aspect of it, if we're going to promote this, heavily, and then we get, 17 applications in one day, and then we run out of funds immediately, that would feel like it's just more runaround for students looking for money. So
We want that budget to go away, so, and either way. Is there any other standing committee updates? You want?
is our president's whole week Thursday? Okay, I think it was Thursday. I haven't set an agenda yet for President's Cabinet, as you haven't either. So I can't actually present today and ask you guys for comments. If there's anything that I feel like would need to, that you'll get to that, I'll make sure to chat forward input, but it's just.
Do you have any context around today's hours?
For President's Cabinet?
Some Thursday, maybe this Thursday.
It's like the first week of the month.
I think it's supposed to be the second to last Thursday of every month. But because this month's so short, it's not, but.
Yeah, everything's here. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so is there any more updates from standing committees moving forward with our advisory committees?
Can I make a comment? No, I forgot.
It's not.
Yeah, sorry, I'm on my iPad. I can't find my hand raise feature, so I'm sorry. I was just going to say something that the budget committee might consider with funding applications, because of what Sky shared as a concern, of making sure that we're like managing that, because this is what I just think we need to think about more holistically, is capping the requests at a certain dollar amount, especially thinking about like, and I don't know how to do this, and maybe, we can talk offline about this with Stephen and Tony about how students who've already received, a lot of funding, let's say they've already received $2,500 and they're still asking for more from student government, like how do we manage that, right? Versus a student organization who hasn't received any funding or minimal funding and is now asking funding from student government. So making sure that we're quantifying that and prioritizing that and recognizing and communicating to students that, that the funding requests are limited right now, and that we are prioritizing students who've had limited access to funding or something like that. But I think those are the nuances that we need to come up with now, because what I worry about, similar to Sky, is that we have student orgs who are very active, who request all the time and are used to that, and then needing to tell them, that funding is limited, and they might get upset about that, but wanting to make sure that there's equity. Do you know what I mean? In how we're doing this. That's all.
Yeah.
So as the budget committee has those conversations, like those are things I think we really need to be thoughtful about, because we don't want to create a situation where, I don't know, things don't go well and we might get complaints from students too. That's all. Sorry.
Yeah, I have a comment for you, Dr. Pearl.
Yeah.
Are you available this Wednesday sometime between 3:30 and 5:30?
It all depends. Right now, I'm supposed to be out on Wednesday afternoon, but is there a reason or is it a budget meeting or something?
Yeah, that's when budget meets, and with leave from Patrick and Irby, I would like to invite you to at least some part of that meeting if you're available.
Okay.
We talk about that exactly. I think the budget, I would really like to see next Monday a proposal from the budget committee for like an interim solution for our funding.
Sure.
process.
No, I think that's the faster the better. Yeah, to come up with something. Yeah, I can probably try to make it. It might be on Teams because I'm supposed to be out at some appointments, but yes.
Okay, thank you. And
All
then I
right,
also,
thanks.
I wanted to say that, just a note for people is that a student organization that I'm part of, and I know others as well, often makes a funding request of like $100 for one tiny thing for their events, or to buy some small thing for their tabling sessions or something. And I really wouldn't want them to have to go through the whole 30 days long process of TSAC to get funding from us. And so, and also I wouldn't want, us to fund 8 orgs of $1,500 and not the ones that just want 100. So I think some sort of like small allocations in that might be a good idea. We can revisit that this month. But I would just say.
Absolutely. Definitely send out the agenda for that, looking over. There are any updates for advisory?
I don't know. I mean, I know I brought to the council with, forget his name, Alex Stanisky. Yeah, Alex Stanisky, he was asking for her membership of the new committee. I'm wondering, is that a better for open? It's like tied to my committee. All right. So I asked for more information, and so this committee meets every other week. And the first meeting is actually today at 4:15, which would not be possible for any of us to attend. The second meeting is Tuesday, March 10th at 4. And then after that, they're gonna meet Thursday, starting at 1 on March 19th, every Thursday throughout the rest of the spring. This committee makes recommendations to senior leadership regarding future use of spaces on campus that are becoming available as a result of ongoing construction projects. So the ones that are going to be created, they give recommendations on set space. And they've asked for at least one student representative.
Are you interested in that?
Not really.
So are you looking to see if we can have a nomination?
That, or I'm also in the mindset of like, if no one wants to, because of capacity, then we don't have to fill every committee the university asks of us if we don't seem to important as a consider. I think. Yeah, I won't be that level.
Ultimately, we all have a capacity. If we can get it done for the council of aren't present and the ones part, since we think it over, evaluate if you could potentially type that into the chat or add it to our next meeting, so we can have discussion about it.
I'll add it to the next meeting.
Seeing as there's any more advisory committee updates, there's open for analysis. Okay, then I want to volunteer for moving forward with our TSAC's goal review for second. And that will be, originally was presented by the or Emma candidates, so we just wanted to make sure. And well.
So you're ending an off today? Is that what you're saying? Okay. So no one from my committee is here today except myself. The person who's most excited and most knowledgeable on the strategy factor is not here either. I mean, I think it's worth potentially discussing a little bit how the council feels overall, so I can bring that back.
I was also excited for this today, but I do think that Emma should be the one starting this conversation. She's had the most work on it. I also think that our next meeting is very important. So I'll motion to take this to our March 9th meeting. Yeah, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Is there any debate? There's no debate. Is there any opposition to the motion of moving this to
Motion passed.
Any abstentions? All in favor, say aye.
Um,
Aye.
Alright.
Thank you, Maria. Motion passes. We have the PSAC goals review for our March 9th. Moving forward with our section 5 of old business, we'll begin for discussion related to campus project policy and procedures. I'll hand it off here to
Funny, I think this discussion might go long again, and so I actually, let's table all of this after new business, so I'll give it the chair. Okay, I'll make that motion. I motion to table all business to the end of.
Do I have a second? Seeing the opposition? Any abstentions? Motion passes. For tabling section 5 of old business. Being that said, we'll move forward with new business. Beginning for discussion, St. Patrick's Day scavenger hunt. I'll give it off to Ms. Susanna.
I was hoping that everyone at council would be here. I think that's not the situation. But mainly, I just wanted to bring up this discussion because it's easier for me to like let you all know what y'all was planning. And the St. Patrick's scavenger hunt, we're all planning to do it on April, sorry, I said March 17th. And it just basically encourages more students just to get to know like what our office is and who was council member. We are asking if you all could wear a ring that day. If not, if you guys don't want to participate, you guys don't want to, it's includes delegates. And what we will be posting the instruction is like, students will be able to take a picture of the council member, upload it in your story, and the amount of like, the amount of time, they upload a story with like council member, it's an entry to win a prize. And we just want to just engage policy with ways of Instagram. Because real company is not the best, but we found a way that pretty interesting. I just wanted to know your own ideas.
I think we have to. Dalton?
So the scavenger hunt is for council members. Okay, let's clarify.
Scott?
So these haven't happened, we're like in our office and they can find us, or we're at a table somewhere. Like,
Well, honestly, they couldn't be in your classroom. They honestly have a side. I think what we need is to really like intrigue ourselves with students. Let students know that we're all part of students. I think that's something that we do like. Every time I'm in a class, I bet people all the time. But no, like, I know not all of us does it. But every time in a class, I'm like, I'm part of student government. Like I was making this and that. Encourage students to know who we are, who you are, what you do, what type of like changes you want to make. And they could have an opportunity. We have like Starbucks gift card, so they could learn to Starbucks gift card. And depending on the amount of entries they do, which is uploading a story, hey, I found the person. And
Scott?
I really like the idea of like doing some more student engagement for that, and we have a pretty good idea for that. I do just like the idea of sort of making like a bounty hunt. For counselors to come snag a photo with a counselor for a prize. I think it might be more appropriate to have, if we have the capacity, to have a couple counselors tabling in different places and like go find our table and engage with us there. I think and that would keep the same sort of sentiment than like go find it in the classes, you know. Just something a little bit weird for that.
Direct response? Yes.
I just feel ideas.
All right.
I think to add to that point is, it's also like taking into consideration, like if we're in class, the professor would find or we conduct a class, you know, it's like, hey, you know, just break into the classroom, it's like, go take a first picture with that guy.
That's the problem with overthinking because I only come up with these ideas because of my group involved. And I know if I coaches like students will not just go to the class. If they do, I'm sorry that happens to you. But most likely they might ask like, hey, can I take a photo of you? I saw you guys on Instagram, you guys are promoting this, or even have a decent conversation with them. But if we don't want to do that, we could also do it to things for Sky as suggested.
Yeah, so I think, I think kind of makes it most of it. We can continue having it, like where you can spot us in class, that's something engagement, that's fun. But also giving the opportunity, but again, like say easy points, like me kind of having us promoting the game and being active in the game. Kind of like a game master, having our tabling, have different individuals. They think about these counselors and count points. And the individuals aren't aware of this, they can have, be aware of the rules of the game, and see what things can be involved. So those tables give the opportunity to present to the community of what we're doing on campus, and we can maybe people get involved, because they always be like, you're already in, right? You're going to say, I'm already in, and I want to join that group. Then I will act. Sure. I think if we do that, it'd be great. And hey, maybe we could do bonus points for probably transfer Patrick, Big.
Two clarifying questions on this. One isn't planning to just be run all again.
Well, I think I just want to go through with just to clarify details, because I know, we've been told that, we don't really take the consideration of the council, and we want to take the consideration of the council. And my idea, or what we thought is kind of like what I was like, oh, I'm going to talk about the problem point, or like when it's gonna stop. And student that does know that you are student government, so they say, like, I know you need student government, take a photo and then post it on the Instagram, and then we repost it on our Instagram stories. And that will help us keep on track of who reposting it, who's posting it, who's going into the press.
This,
Second question?
yes, is a second question that is directly linked to his topic. Is it one entry per counselor and delegate then? Like, can one person get up to, I am gonna get this number wrong, but like 19 or how many other entries? Yes. Okay. Oh, and then are they also like in the post, should we be telling them like, hey, like, I forget their name, but they don't. At PSAC, basically.
Yes.
And have that in this group.
Yes, because if they don't tag us, you won't see the entry, I won't see the posted.
Fine with that.
So, what a surprise.
Starbucks.
So, yes, I think that's one great. Well, I was just gonna say, like the reason why, like, the reason why, like, Clark decided to kind of make it a, like, non-representation, like, thing, like, or like, we just, they're putting down, because we have seen, like, a lot of council members, and the good little amount of council members of students, so that's the reason why we not go that route, instead of just like, honestly, instead of just like doing your class every day, anytime, just wearing the future. So that is huge.
Mr. Cooks, two questions. I heard Starbucks get this correct. Would we be doing?
Yes, we have 10, we were thinking about 3 prizes, but we can't remember what prize, we only have 2 prizes. One is an item from the today store, one is a Tennessee flag, and then the second one is the $10 gift card.
So I have a clarifying question for myself. Yes, it's so where the ones getting people pictures, or is somebody's going to be like us, right? I'm just trying to understand.
It will be marketed on our Instagram saying that this thing is gonna happen. If you find a counselor with it, they're running for the thing. If you made it ads and tell to them, take a photo and post it on your Instagram, to see it.
All right, thank you.
I definitely am 100% for the tabling idea. There's two things problems I want to address. Is one, it's only one day. So if you only have classes on Mondays and Wednesdays, you just completely miss out. The second big issue is that I think we should absolutely avoid the idea of points or some sort of like game system. That's around midterms week for a lot of people. So people are not going to care too much about any sort of game. They're going to be focused on midterms. So keep it simple. In my opinion, keep it simple, keep it engaging, and we'll get the best results what we're looking for versus like a game. That's what I feel.
I think I really see some engagement around St. Patrick's Day sort of tied more into what I mentioned, talk about in this midterm supportive initiative. Like, I think of having like green cookies while we're tabling and like maybe in the shape of like, like really clover or something, like something like that, as opposed to like, a giveaway when we go find counselors in the natural habitat. I guess. I like the idea of it, but I do think that it would be, I don't think I would be comfortable with like an open call for people on campus to come find me with whatever I'm doing. Take a picture with me for a place. And I imagine other counselors and abilities that share that sort of concern. I think like, coming to the table and maybe into the raffle at the table, if we could answer a piece of St. Patrick's Day trivia around or something, I think that might make more sense. Yeah, it's fine.
Also, with teams, especially to, I think it's a great idea. If we can, I think it's the fun way to get people. And, definitely just like, it could be big or small, depending on what we can. Taking what they can say that we're gonna have an event scheduled after that. So, maybe we could use the promotion in different avenues, kind of like looking through different events that are being going on today. And maybe we can have counselors who attend to those events, individuals who participate in events. Those events are gonna happen with or without us. They can, of course, engage in those events, view the photo, find the council that's at the event. Kind of make it like limited time amount. That way people don't have to like kind of scurry around. Likewise, it's in last minute. Moreover, counselors, have the option to be there. Have the option. Gives them their opportunity. Because if you're going to be at an event, I think it's a great incentive. That's insult.
I'll take in all of this notes and we do have us put on maybe in this place, Facebook, you guys know anything about it. Y'all more welcome to join the club meeting. Well, I would just emphasize the stuff you say, when we do our student events, nobody really listens. So if you wanna like really try to be out there with students, using to, I wouldn't call you all to the, I just start to the words around you with the sign up. And you went to the out your hour, which like you were beginning.
On the idea of tabling events, I know if we're getting off in the same hype that we described in the front, it's probably very big. I think it might make sense to, right now, there's nothing that requires like tabling. It's just sort of like, if you want to be engaged, and I would be engaged, but I imagine would feel better if there was like a little fire in there, like would feel more compelled to do it. Would be compelled to. I think it might be cool for a PR. I'd love to help, being a member of PR, to help write a resolution. It's like avoiding paper. And like, if we vote and pass a resolution that requires counselors to engage in, 1 hour per month at minimum of tabling, that would be a good way to say, hey, you can get your tabling credit in if you'll come to this tabling session, and I also want to note that, yes, I do recognize that there is like a little bit of lack of engagement with the tabling side of things on the counselor's part, but also on the PR part, as saying as someone who like was part of that last year a little bit, is like, it is also imperative that you not only just schedule tabling sessions, you also make sure that you schedule them when people are available. And noting that we are all busy human beings, but if maybe we write a resolution that sort of compels some sort of amount of tabling per month, that might make it a little bit easier to get counselors to sign up with accountability. That's what we're with that.
Thank you, Scott. And that was actually done in about 2 seconds. We got that as it's so. Moving forward for our discussion of midterm support initiative. Back again.
Another one that we kind of want to really do is in terms of supportive initiative. So it's basically a starting our session. We did consider like trying to bring a tutoring center or a writing center, but really student hourly working thing. So that doesn't really like help us for that part. So for that day, we're all thinking of doing on March 9th from 6 p.m. at 8 p.m. basically after our PSAT meeting, and just have like a good study session for 2 hours with students. And also promote it, provide snacks, food supplies, and just a little cafe music. And we all planning to do it at the multicultural lunch, the one next to Starbucks. And, yeah, and, is
Okay, so, what exactly will the, council members be doing?
just study.
Just studying, okay? That's it. That's literally it, okay.
I'm just wondering about the location. Would it be possible to go to the library? That's sort of a natural process. How do you get to study?
I didn't think about the library. And I'm not sure if we're allowed to. I know in the library it says like we can't bring food in there, or students bring food in the fourth level. But, I think we have to communicate with the library if that's allowed.
That's a good kind of level. On that, I'm just thinking reserve a little like cafe thing. It's like a mission for food is, dedicated for, that might be an option. But what I was gonna ask was this sort of something similar to like food for finals, but much cheaper? Is that the idea?
It's basically the idea, but we just want to like, support students just having a quiet study place where that everybody around them is gonna sit in and not really talk about as much. Even though we have a library and we go to it, like providing snacks, or even have like a food session. We just go with, just think about them, study sessions, snacks, like, they're a little bit.
Kind of. Is this a, like, midterms is sort of different for every class? I think it's kind of 3 week span of midterms, and sort of kind of midterm season depending on the class you're in. Are we planning on having like a, like, every day for those 3 weeks, like reserving space to have to like a low stakes event where like, people go to study? Or are we looking for like, a day that's an event or 2 days and like, what's the environment?
I believe we always say March 9th, and to me, and don't be of it, so it's really difficult to like get classes to like stay active, I think, so.
And just,
Anybody have a question?
I was actually in the mood.
Okay.
I was just in this. So, for me, I think if we could have, I think it's great if we can have like 1 day or 2 days. I think it definitely, 2 days maybe be cool, but like you said, our capacity is always stretched, to be frank. However, maybe kind of like Sky was, I'm agreeing with Sky, maybe we can reach out to libraries, maybe, because there's a space that's really, that's where they self-food, I don't know, they can self-food anything. But that's where you can potentially have it there and be very good. We can always allow people naturally go to the market. That's great. And the big differentiation between this and proof of finals, proof of finals is really more of like a stress-free environment that we try creating. So it's not said like where individuals come, people absolutely come and study. That's more like trying to have a break from finals and that kind of rest. Hence, we have a massage therapist, we have a food. You don't really have to study, you just have to sit down and relax. You have a fidget toy to do that, or cocoa. So the intentions of Poopy Finals really is relaxation from really the stress we have as possible for those Poopy Finals. And this would be really our impact as students that we also want to study. We want to encourage other students to study. Okay.
I don't know if it's been a second year to go, like a 2 year event maybe, like I understand, like being like for all 3 weeks, that kind of generally follow their midterms are to be able to have to counselors. But the point that Nathan raised on the last discussion point is that a lot of students don't always have like a Monday. Like not all students have like a Monday class that they would be on campus. So anyway, like I'll speak for myself, but I'd be when we're looking out, especially in that like 6 to 8 window, because my schedule is crazy and I'm busy till like 6 p.m. every day, so that's already when I'm doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a very good. Actually, like one event, one week, the other one, the next week. Yeah, that's the kind of people have. So I don't know if I'm actually probably basically study session. With sponsored by the providing the snacks, whatever. We're also thinking of showing appreciation to the student center by providing like snacks and beverages. And then sharing those during that week.
It's on a Monday. That's
So, yes, what we originally planned was like, sorry, but yeah, we originally planned only, March 9th and 16th.
Okay, good to know. I also, if anyone does want to transition to the library, I know it's really tight turnaround, so I don't know if it's possible, but if you did, I believe the library is open to 8 also. On every day except Friday, and so it's just like a consideration, if that is a spot, that is at least a little bit.
I've been before, I've been to several times, so as a student, it's definitely, got started naturally. And in regards to our helping out resourcing and kind of advocating, promoting for the community center, has there been any discussion with the communication community center as far as like possibly them helping us collaborate or providing the resources that we present to the students?
So not necessarily, we did acknowledge how like their students themselves, they're already paid, so we cannot ask them to like, prioritize that advice, we cannot do that for our way. Our solution is to kind of just like try to for them to that and that and stuff. We haven't made any decisions to the community center yet, because, just how we did discussion, we have nothing more.
Yeah, if, just from experience last year, we could just like kind of ask them for specific resources. Mr. Coates?
Quick question, when you keep forwarding the library, do you really forget that library?
Steph?
I also want to say that I think that anytime there's like a 2 to 3 weeks notice for an event like this, I think there's a high chance that we'll have low turnout. So I would love to hear, at the next TSAC meeting, if this is continue a like marketing plan. I mean, by that time you guys probably have a flyer out already, but I'd love to hear like, how many flyers are we getting out there? Are we going to talk to the students to like tell them about this event? Because like such short notice, I don't want us to do a lot of effort into this event for like a small amount of student engagement.
Possibly resolution. I mean, we see counselors help them identify, right? It means you can really help out with. Maybe that these people can get out. I mean, last year also had, I know we always went through to make sure that that's one of the smooth as the case. Is there any more discussion? If not, we'll move forward with our new business, item C, CRSP 2605, resolution to TSAC merchandise. So someone, please take it.
Yay. Okay. So this is the resolution to, TSAC merchandise. Other by me, and Stephanie.
That's it. So you guys all computer. Thank you.
Okay, abstract. So the Board Regulation Committee of SGTSAC focusing renewal evaluation slash for the current all former council member evaluation for the current appointment delegate and either appointment structure teacher for short as determined by the council. All members of SGTSAC. Whereas the Board Regulation Committee includes two purposes of selected merchandise, which includes the sash, or either premium slash or policy that will be chosen by the council. Whereas it's recognized and honors the current council members who are not seeking re-election or graduate, celebrating the service and dedication to MSU students. Therefore, it will be resolved that the Public Relations Committee will report the new graduation charges for graduation chassis, graduation floor, and the equipment to structure all for room within a budget of $500 into.
Now moving forward for discussion. Point of order?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we had previously sort of agreed. That's, to have a motion to adopt it first and then go. to discussion. So, okay.
You have a motion, I entertain the motion to adopt.
The authors. of the motion. Yeah, so before we discuss this, someone, typically the author would motion to adopt this, then someone else seconds it, and then we answer the vote.
So we don't get lost in the motion.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a motion.
Do I have a second? Okay, second, and now we go into the date for the adoption of SB. SB 26.
I'm curious what, because you have a specific set static number, but I expect that the green sweatshirts have a different price range than the polo t-shirts, so I was curious if that was a static budget, and if you had figured that out.
Yes, I did figure it out, and that's why I wanted to debate it. And Keegan, is it okay to, I just showed a PDF to Keegan, but Keegan is not here, so I just show my photo on what it looks like. I have the prices in it.
Can you quickly send it to me?
Yeah,
In the meantime, we'll have some items.
Yeah, I was gonna say thank you, PR. I think it's a really good idea. I would certainly love to have a board on my, when I graduate. But I do wanna, I'm curious, what was the motivation behind, having a difference of like the session board for different members of the council of delegates?
like, the core, it's here with the other things, because if we show like their contribution and also the semester they're in, then council members, it's more and more time commitment. So that is why I think it's also that. Because even before they, delegates would get on the board after we do the delegate and get it pulled up in this, before the resolution on the council members will only get it back.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think we should give council and delegates the same thing. I think we should give council and delegates any council member, the option of either a status report, as opposed to, like setting a different status. I think like, yes, fundamentally counselors have a larger time, like statutory commitment, but I also want to honor like the work the delegates are doing as being like substantial. And I think that like being able to choose from the statutory report makes perfect sense.
Well, I think I have a purpose. For the same reason that, chief members, we have to run for election, we are appointed by the body that this. They don't get appointed by the student body, but like the role of delegate and chief council member is very different. Doesn't mean that it's not as important, but I think it's important to differentiate the different roles. Because there is when it comes to delegate.
I want to second what Sky's saying. What happens next semester when we get a new delegate that does 10 times the amount of work than any council member? You know, there's also these chance of like, well, there is a hierarchy. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And I feel like it just creates a kind of like a different, like, it doesn't, I don't find it that important to separate, especially when it comes to graduation. So, like I said, if the idea is like, oh, one could do more than the other, yes, but what happens when the reverse happens, you know, then is that really fair? So I said, I second what Sky's saying.
I think I have to disagree with that concept, just because in the past, I believe former council members being in a sash. And I was in child, I was in after the sash, and they were part of the CSAC. And the only reason why we came up with the code was because it was suggested by the delegate. And I'm not a former delegate, and I don't think I do it to get a code. And I think it does, like, I do agree with what Stephanie says. Even if like, I believe in the honor society, for example, they have different policies for different reasons. And it doesn't really make sense. Well, I think it doesn't really make sense for a delegate do you get a graduation crash if it's in a monthly complimentary, or was it in that position? If they do, then we do get a full annual sash, we can do it. And I think it goes into what things actually really cool, that's just the hospital and students.
And frankly, I feel like in the perspective of not necessarily evaluating individuals based off workflows. I mean, at the end of the semester, we have our own goals that we like to get. Some of them are a little bit, in a joking way, but some of it's also recognizing the effort that we should put into this issue. But as far as kind of going back to what Stephanie was saying, in regards for counselor and delegate, to say that there isn't a difference would be a lot. And to say there are a lot of similarities is very true, because there are incredible amount of similarities, especially this semester, where delegates are allowed to speak without having to ask the council to allocate time. But that's what it was last year. Delegates that allocated, get their time allocated, yeah. It was a lot more micromanaging in a certain sense, which is why, this being our second year of the delegate program, we're trying to evaluate, do a little bit more, make the position a lot better, and a lot more efficient. But the biggest idea behind the delegate program was to get individuals who don't necessarily want to be a counselor, but want to be active. They want to be able to do work within TSAC, and they don't have to run for elections, so it's a low commitment. And now, like you said, Steve, what if someone puts in a lot of hours? Like, I mean, my boss would love for me to do a lot more than I do, but I mean, he's gotta say thank you. And, I think it's great, if we can recognize the individual on that work, I think it'd be great, but what if there's one individual that's overworked, it's seven relative on them. So, there comes to that kind of balance, like, I think when we get this kind of conversation, it can get a little bit gray, a little bit shady. I prefer to rather look at the individuals who were elected by the community, people who had to get those 22 signatures that we do right now, get those signatures, looking for faculty member, then you gotta do your campaign, you got to get all these votes out, and it's a different process for sure. And I think for individuals who made that sacrifice initially get that, I think it's good. I'm not necessarily think it's a hierarchy, but I definitely think there's a further difference, and maybe we can give, at least the delegates support. That's better than us.
Well, wait,
I think, why do you need to prioritize the separate? Do you prioritize something because the delegates are, also like, I think that, that continuing on that, at the end of the day, we're all for the speaker, that's students, students. And there may be, as far as like on paper, like responsibilities, maybe a little bit different, but that the same schools versus boards on that is not. I think that we should be giving people the option if they want still or employed, and it shouldn't just be based on what either category you are. I think it's good for people to have the option because there's some people who still. And like, yeah, I guess I just wrote that last to make up why prioritize if you are like if you're in tax as a counselor or delegate over work that we do, like somebody the delegate wants to still like.
I want to acknowledge that I may have used the word title too long. Maybe I should have put title. I think that's a better way to say, because I think we're going too much on like me saying hierarchy, right? Because like Patrick said, I will jump on from that there is a difference, someone delegate and then it's just not constant. There is a difference and there's nothing wrong with that. Delegates had to do something different compared to his like council members, and there's nothing wrong with that. When it comes to the amount of work, there's a reason why we were solutions. We had responsibilities and rights that delegate had to do to set a minute, right? If you go above and beyond, that's great for you, right? The TSAT member can do that as well. You get paid this amount of number. You get paid this amount of money, right, every month, if you do more or less. Or we do have to hit like a certain like minimum, right? So like, I don't think it's the best thing to focus on amount of words. If a delegate or a TSAT council member does, because like Patrick said, if you do that, bosses are gonna say things, right? Like it's, if that makes sense. And an example I would like to bring up is that I was in a health program, and when my first year, just being a member, I got a course. And then I became a peer mentor, right? That means more responsibility. So I had to apply for that position that was more competitive, and then I got the cash. So I think it's really important to value like differently, or like value teach back how to member and what they've done, and the delegate what they've done. And I think it's important to have a to acknowledge their importance.
To rebuttal, what you're saying. Oh, yeah.
Please recognition of the chair first.
Oh, yes, yes.
Mr. So here's the order right now, so we said we will face,
I mean, I'll just say that it's not going one-sided. I mean, we all joined TSAT, when was it a store or right, ultimately links for the students.
Gotcha.
so, okay,
You know, that maybe some of those statements like earlier, like this, we've only the choice and we and I think we should also have the choice of whether or not we want a stole or a board. And if a delegate goes like, hey, I want to have both because I plan to run the keep that in the future. So now I'm getting that. I think that is the thing that's fine. And but I also believe that we have to, I think if you want to have a stole, like I think that typically comes from a place of like, I'm committed to this, I want this, I want to keep working at this, and make student advocacy important students. And I think it should be up to both delegates and council to decide.
I think this goes directly to like a philosophical question. This is one that we've been trying to answer since the delegate program started last, like, over a year, over 2 years ago. And I know that the version, I will just say frankly, the version of the delegate program that passed this year, I think has hierarchy. And I voted no on it. I might have been the only person I know, but I voted no on it because I think that it should have been differently. And I think we have an opportunity to do that as we shape the program and as we add additional rewards essentially, which would a stole or a cord would be. I think the entire idea of TSAC was that non-hierarchical body. It's like why we think this way for the last 5 going on 6 years now. The idea that like the president, vice president structure does not work for MSU Denver students because of who they are. I also think that it would be an error to try to examine time commitments because every counselor that I've witnessed in the last 2 years has taken their time commitment differently. I know Will and Matt are working like 80 hours a week on this, and I love you guys for it, but I don't think that should be the requirement either. And I've also seen counselors do less than the bar. I've seen that in the past too. And the same with delegates. Like last year we had a delegate we removed from the program. This year we've had a counselor resign. Last year there were multiple counselors that resigned, I think, or the year before that. There have been resignations. And also we as TSAC right now could appoint a counselor tomorrow to replace Cyrus Spahn if we wanted to. And they would get a stole under this legislation. And I think that it's not about time commitment. We are all members of this body advocating for the students. We are all members of this body. And I don't think it makes sense to have like a separate, sash versus cord based on that. I think if we were going to based on like years of time dedicated to TSAC, if you're in TSAC for more than 2 years, you get a sash. Less than that, you get a cord. That would be less hierarchical to me. That's more you've been here longer. You did more work as opposed to like what status of what member you were. I've heard a lot of arguments here that I've also heard in like I hear a lot of arguments for the different rewards here. It sounds like separate but equal to me. like low key, in my reading of the history there, and I don't want to see that. I would really like it if we would, amend this resolution before we pass it, or, vote no on it.
Yeah. I would, just to give what I would personally feel like if I become a council member, as I was chosen by student body, and I chose my delegate, and my delegate's great, he worked hard, he helped me out, and then it's for him to miss out on the opportunity to get a sash and be like, he did a great job. I liked his work, I respected him, her, it's one of those things where I feel like, as a council member, I always value so much hard work, especially when they show it. I feel like they should definitely be rewarded regardless of the requirements set forth before. That's all. Oh, I gotta go to my next meeting.
Thank you for coming. I have a question, not related to the set. So the sweater for the other option, what would be the logo on it?
Well, I was gonna show it right there.
Okay.
After. But basically, like, every member of the CSAC will get a sweater or a student, because I'm on member of the CSAC.
Oh, I like more the. Yeah, I like so much, so that's fine.
So there are two different options. Obviously, I was in navy blue. I try to like compare the colors. We could have just a T-side logo on the right side of the tunic, or just have the T-side under it right there, and just on the bottom, see the student advocacy council and the symbol. And the polo is just the how do you want to go to the next one, student? And in the photo, I only created one design, which is gonna be the dark navy one with red stripes on the side, also on the right side, and on the back is the T-set and the year that we will only 65. No, I was just asking about that. But, what I was gonna say, I think the sashes and the clothes for like, I think we wanna have like a discussion on like English scheduling. For an example, like I said, we just gave out an example for my story, and I could have my stash like silver, but I can't have silver because it's only certain safe choice. It's the same thing, like, and I could only get a stash for golden because I'm graduate. And silver and white, all sisters in my story have awesome colors, but probably with 5 different colors that doesn't have, but we'll also do that in the beginning. And I do, we would start like, we're all members of the candidate, no matter if you're dedicated or a council member, but I feel like and I think there should be a difference, and I think there is a difference between the dedicated and council, and that was what the resolution.
And going off of that, I mean, like, I was in the meeting when we were, evaluating this. So just for some context, every year, the councils who graduate, and this is how it is right now, like, if we didn't pass this today, this is how for a while, if we graduate, the individual who graduate will get a stash, and it'll be just councils. That's already in place. So what this is in place for the purpose of resolution is, to update the stash that we kind of wanted to see a difference. And also, biggest thing that we want to have the inclusion, given with the feedback of Susanna's background and Steffi's background, and what she's working in, and kind of see that system being in place. That was where it originated from. So we're not necessarily looking at, I think we've been looking at it a little bit differently. Seems like it's been a delegated counselor's conversation more than sash and everything. So I feel like it's important to recognize the words of this guy said that's that, one day we didn't come here for sash, we didn't come before all that, we came here to represent students. That was Will, yes, that's the also that we came here for all this. So I think it's important to recognize that and not to really get too bombarded with it, and like if we take it too personal, just like ideas and developing something, you know, given that we have to have the resolution here, we have to vote on it, we have discussion about it, it's so to speak, in. So,
So I just want to get back to like the question. The question is a consideration of this resolution. I would agree with you, sort of discussing hierarchy of second order. I currently, as it's written, I oppose the resolution. Because it, in my opinion, is furthering the hierarchy that we were trying to oppose here. I don't really care if it's like we all get courted, we all get sections, or what specifics. I'm not like that intent on my graduation is gonna happen 3 years from now. But I don't want there to be like a system where we have 17 members here and 5 of them only get this part instead of that part, or 6 of them only get this part instead of that part. And so I would be opposed to this. I would ask for the authors to amend it. Also, like in my visual count of the votes, I'm seeing 4-4, which would make this resolution fail. Well, she hasn't voted yet, but that would make this resolution fail. And so I would ask that the authors propose an amendment rather than seeing it fail. So I do think it's a idea to start speaking about.
I'm sorry. Did you all call on me already? I didn't hear it.
I haven't seen your hand, but I'm gonna add you next.
you're in the queue, Maria.
Now you are.
No, like, sorry. Did you ask me to vote? Is that what I'm missing?
No, sorry, anyway, I apologize. I have one more thing too. I would also really like to see in the resolution, like, how this pertains to the PR budget. Because I think we assigned the PR budget to a specific mission, and there's something in the resolution that talks about like, whereas the PR committee does this, therefore we're paying for this. And so I will be curious to see that written into your policy.
I like the sort of point about like so many cycles we potentially that being a bigger difference than the category itself. Point 1, and then point 2. To me, it seems like the council is divided on this, like where we live at this resolution. And that's okay. If y'all want to push it, we'll vote, and we'll see how it goes, and if it goes, it goes. It doesn't, it doesn't. That's all I'll say.
And just for close thing, because we got wrapped this up. 2 questions, one on pertaining, kind of Billy and Steven, because I'm not familiar with the stashes. As far as the stashes, where does that come out from? Like, where did it come out last year?
Yeah, we at the end of the year when we didn't have to purchase any last year because we had some from the previous year. Given that you all are looking to adjust what it looks like, we are going to have to purchase them. You all are going to have to decide where they come out of. It could come out of the PR budget, which to me that makes sense since they're bringing it forward. It could come out of roll forward as well. I know you all don't necessarily have a designated roll forward, but that's up for you all to decide.
And for accountability, this is a resolution, this wouldn't stick around next cycle, right? So it's not amendments, this wouldn't be forever. It would do this, yeah, just this cycle.
If we did it the other way, a monitoring, so.
Yeah, it would be just be legal. Steven?
Just for you all to consider, yes, I know you're talking about whether or not it's a resolution versus an amendment, but you are going to spend money on this. So if I purchase X number of stoles and Y number of cords, and the next council decides, hey, we're going to change this up, cool. But then what's going to happen with those that I ordered? So something to consider.
Direct follow-up?
Yeah, just like what Steven is doing. That when we have that separation for that reason, that we know how much stashes to get and how much clothes to get. And
Is this a direct follow-up? Faye?
Yeah, I guess is I guess technically a question and also a suggestion. Is there a reason that there is a specific year allocated on
Right. It's just because of the branding, that's pretty much it, but you could take that off, those are those changes, we could make easily, but. I just put trying to change like, but.
Actually put that on. Sorry.
Wait, does that make sense to put the year on it? Because if different counselors graduate different years, then we have to make different numbers for, I don't know how personal those, that sort of thing comes, but if there was no number, then all of them said that would be.
That's, I think that's what we did in the previous iteration, which slide we have, didn't use catchers. So,
Yeah, it's in the design, I think, 65 shouldn't be the number on the back of the shirt. TSAC's like brand new, and so I know that like MSU, the Metro State College is that old, but I don't think we are. I think it might make more sense to put the year, that person's in TSAC and order these on a yearly basis. And so like have like hours would be, 26, I guess, would make more sense typically it's spring, but so 26 TSAC on your shirts. And then for the soles, I think one of the options that only has text on one side and that one side just being TSAC instead of putting it here also makes sense. Having the logo and other things, I think that makes the most sense. And then while I still have the floor, I want to ask, do the authors plan to amend this? Otherwise, I want to call the question. I want to talk a lot about it. I think it'd be a good discussion, but I would ask you guys to amend it first. Otherwise, we can call the question and see what the votes are.
I think it looks like we wanted to wait for this, since we don't have every here, we do not necessarily do this.
sorry, so do you want to table the resolution?
Yes.
If most
Okay,
likely,
we
it
have a motion.
doesn't take.
I think it's fine. Yeah, I think it'd be wise to table it if you don't feel comfortable amending it. I do want to note that I think we should table it for 2 weeks instead of next week, because we are having 2 visitors, including President Davis incoming, and we're probably gonna have a very short time Christmas. So yeah, I'll yield the floor, and then I guess I ask for a motion to table to March 9th.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. CR 20 SP 2605, resolution TSAC mentioned has been tabled for. Now we go back to our old business for discussion. We have.
Yeah, I had something to open for, that I sort of hadn't actually thought about until the weekend. There's throughout this, and this goes back to the earlier conversation, but I don't have to dwell too long on it, but, I think it makes a lot of sense, I talked to Matt about this earlier this year, to have like permanent versions of documents submitted for our agendas. You'll notice that on the agendas, when you go click on the links in there, it's always a PDF, and I'm the one that made the agenda for that. That way, you know exactly what was noticed to you, so you can see any changes that happened over the weekend, or since you like that last test look at it. I think it's important for, like, knowing that when you read something, you know it's not gonna be different when it gets to read up and passed. And so for that, I want to create sort of like a rule that states, if there's no rule about it right now, like a standing rule, essentially just be agreed, to where the meeting minutes need to be presented as a PDF on the agenda for them to be considered on that next time. Because I think resolutions, that's already happening, for amendments, it's already happening, for almost everything that's already happening, it's not happening for minutes. And so, Patrick is gone, he's not defer the chair, so I will take over as chair, yes. I'm gonna make a motion, for the creation of a standing rule that meeting minutes be considered only if their final version was attached to the agenda when noticed. And I can give that exact number, just even. Okay, I motion for the creation of a standing rule that meeting minutes be considered only if their final version was attached to the agenda when noticed. Okay, I've made a motion. I don't feel, what you call it, particularly interested in it to the point where I'm impartial, so I'm gonna continue to keep the presiding chair. It's been seconded by Will. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, that's a standing rule. Thank you. I will pass the presiding chair back to Patrick to continue the old business or any other.
Hopefully we have open floor. So anyone else can- Moving forward with our old business. For discussion, Murray County's projects, policy, procedures.
Okay, sorry, back to me. Okay, this was from the meeting, this is from the agenda last week. Reason I wanted to table it was just so we can make sure to get all the things from the business out, because this might take up a little bit of time. This is sort of went over, so I think we should start with the procedures for immigration enforcement activities on campus. I would love to hear what people think about them, and also like if TSEC wants to weigh in at all. I'll start by just talking about them. So there's immigration enforcement policy at AHEC. It's 7.7. It passed about a year ago. And it just sort of reiterates a lot of state laws that don't allow ACPD and AHEC to cooperate in immigration investigations. It declares that all public spaces outside on campus are obviously available to federal immigration or federal officers to go because it's public, but that non-public spaces are not available and you must present a warrant. I think there's a couple things where this policy fails, in that it doesn't explain exactly where like you're supposed to go to serve a warrant, I guess, and it doesn't set out what to do when or if ICE comes to campus. I don't know if that goes in the policy or there's gonna be a separate procedure, but I would love to see an AHEC level document that states like what happens on this campus if immigration officers come.
Begins. Maybe.
I'm just making sure. Okay. Okay. All right. This would be brought up, I imagine, to say candidates.
It's been brought up at SECAM. I brought it up at SECAM. It was brought up last year. Anna Rose, the former AWAB representative, former CU representative, brought this stuff in a resolution. I don't know what progress we're gonna make in SECAM this year on this policy. I'm sensing opposition from the CU representatives on the consideration of some sort of thing like this. I think they're scared that that students would want to care about this and come to AWAB about it, which is an interesting thing, being scared of student engagement. But I don't think the SACAB is the best place for us to start that work. I think we need to work on it, especially with the population of our staff.
Yeah, speaking to like a document of what to do with ICE comes to campus, MSU already has one and it's fairly robust.
Just for a bit of clarification, that document is wonderful and I'm so happy that Gregor did that. However, I will say that it's guidance. I want to see procedure written in place, signed by an executive. That'll be a vice president, it'd likely be, Jim Carpenter's probably side of the world, not in administration and operations, but like, I want to see a procedure signed, not just a guidance from the department that works on it. Something that it is agreed this is the procedure for it.
I mean, I kind of, the question that I was going to ask was, what you said, right? And Sky, you're the one who put this on the agenda, I would ask you what you would think it would look like, what would be that response or ask be held by their MSU or.
I think it requires us to develop our ask a little bit. I'm certainly not ready for an ask. I mean, I have some asks. I have let's create a concrete procedure of what student ICE comes to campus, concrete lockdown procedures for the buildings, not just badge access, but lockdown to where the doors won't open except from the inside. If ICE is verified on campus, creating an alert system to where if it's ACPD or access control or whoever can send out a notification that says the campus under lockdown due to immigration enforcement activities on campus, like something like that. That's like very clearly in no uncertain term explaining what's happening. I'd like to see that at the AHEC level. I'd also love to see institutional policies that and work in concert together to make all of that happen. I would like to see there be a list of, 10 executives of all four institutions that have the authority to make a call to ACPD or access control or whoever it is to institute that lockdown. Because right now, even the one under JSSB that we sponsored last year, and it is in effect, the guidance is member of the public, member of the campus community sees ICE on campus. You call immigrant services calls David Fine called Leanne Bokinski called ACPD. And if ACPD confirms it in person after all of that, then they may choose to shut it down and take it. That's the current procedure. I want to see a little bit more like robust, like there are 10 people, whether that be the COOs from each institution and above, can make a call to this one office and shut the campus down pending confirmation. Like, I want to see a quick direct action on that. And I don't think or trust AHEC to be expedient on ensuring that happens without a formal procedure written in place and agreed upon.
Just chime in, I think, I agree with what you're saying. I mean, if we can have an alert, making students also aware. But I think you're saying it's procedural, making this something that it's not like suggestive, because that doesn't make people would feel like, well, I make a bunch of suggestions to people, I try to get it to people, will they listen to it? That's different. And that's exactly where our concern is here. Will this actually come through? Will people actually abide from what these guidelines are saying? With the public areas, time with this. But I would like to see more, rather than separation from ACPD with ICE, I would like to see more of a support from ACPD to us. I'd rather know that I have them on our side. I'd rather know that these individuals here are here, what the duty is to protect the students that are on campus, make sure that the individuals in the community, faculty, administration, students, all feel comfortable here and knowing that they'll have our back. Is that likely? I'm not sure. I feel if we can probably kind of demand a little bit more out of that and support for us rather than for ICE, because if it's just a guidance and not a procedure, and then someone doesn't feel like they really want to go and check, and then there's a lot of stepping stones that a lot of dominoes can fall in place, including for students who are heavily impacted by that. Scott?
To that point that you're saying that I have on as well, I think that, and this is actually something that Janine Davidson talked to us about in the time she came a year ago, last spring. I was here for that. She said that ACPD are our friends. She said that like ACPD are out of all the cops in the world and they're the best for us here. I think that it makes the most sense to institute procedures for the campus like safety side of things as opposed to just the cops. And this is also something that Janine said, which was that like ACPD is not going to get into a shooting match with ICE over our safety. That's just not going to happen. They're going to step aside the moment that ICE says they have the authority to be there. And I trust that that's probably right. I don't think we should rely on ACPD to be like, to protect and serve the students of Prairie campus in the imminent threat of ICE. I think rather we should ensure that they are enforcing their non-cooperation agreement they have, and that they're required not to cooperate by state law, and ensuring that in procedure that's enforced. Ensuring that at all times, Auraria campus is enforcing their right to not have the campus searched. So like, there's that side of things too. That's what I want to see as opposed to sort of hoping that ACPD can, protect us. I want to see concrete protections written in policy about what AHEC will do when this does happen, at some point.
That's, like I said, we can have all these things set in place, but are they gonna follow it? Can we trust that? The only thing we can really trust is procedure. So what's our discussion earlier with tabling? It's a lot more of a census if it's it's a difference between I have to, and I can't. And this is a situation for students, myself, for my community, I want it to be, I have
to. This was something that I should have brought up during before, but I've not, I'm making notes, they didn't probably here yet. But I'll get it. turn in the chat earlier and probably reach out to the meeting if there's any specifics. Like the meeting, if they didn't see any specific out for discussion with Carpenter, other than simply like the broad topic of shared governance. So do we want this discussion to be something also on the table in that email order?
I think maybe, one of my, I'm gonna say Cat now, and so one of my advisors, Alyssa, Malimo, has said that the best person to talk about this is gonna be, Chief Hollendor, or Jason, she calls him. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to, like, request him to come to TSEC meeting and answer questions for us. I don't know if Jim Carpenter's the right person essentially to ask for that, because he's just gonna say, I need the person, I guess what I would perceive. Because there isn't anything on the MSU side of things. And so like, as much as like, he is the person to talk to about getting MSU policies in place and changing those, 100%. I think the more pressing issue is the AHEC issue, because they control active control for every building in this campus except for Boulder, which is all CU buildings. So even the SS, they control access control for it. And so I would care more about their policies, even above MSU's.
Yeah, MSU, outside of like, kind of high up leadership, it's pretty, they're pleading powerless on campus safety after the JSSB. So if we want to tell Jimmy that he should go and talk to AHAC and try and get this through, that's something we could do. But any MSU personnel probably don't have very much to say.
I'm gonna tell you, every conversation I've had with Janine, and every time she comes to our meetings, we present her with something, usually we're not prepared. And then she asks us what we would do. Because I've seen this from her, is like her, but I think this is sort of like a leadership style, I guess, is like, if we have a complaint or a concern or a question about what she's doing, she's gonna ask us what we would do and what us. I think it's a little bit unfair, because we're students and we don't have the experience that she does as anything. But I do think that if we're trying to do that, if this upcoming meeting, we're gonna ask for questions about this, we should present a plan. Like present actually like what we want to see from her. Her in her position as a member of the very board, and her in her position as chief executive of the university. And to Maria's point, David Fine would be a great person to talk to.
See, as there's more discussion on that aspect, I think it's going up, but just closing out, we can probably cast and prepare for the next meeting regarding this, actually laid out, because it's, we can talk about it, but we don't have anything to really ask for. Not gonna.
Can I see a show of hands who'd be interested in writing a resolution with me to this effect? Okay, I will DM you all. And we'll start that, hopefully to present the upcoming Monday. It requires asynchronous work, but just FYI, I would really appreciate everyone to give like an hour or something to work on that separately from each other, but thank you. Anyway, thanks. Also, we supplement, for some of the, I think, we've had lots of like conversations about this. And I would love to further those conversations as we continue. Is there any, specific comments that you can inform me as one of you guys can take representatives as I bring this conversation further up? Also, like ideas for how TSEC might be involved directly too. I'm not sure.
We discovered as a direct representative for TSEC or TSEC reimagined. Ever since our meeting on January 13th, there hasn't been, sorry. Back in December was our last meeting, and we haven't had a meeting since then. Likewise, moving through our discussion last time, I didn't feel like there was too much impact that I felt like students could be doing in that space. I thought, given into the realm of instruction and my background as well, I'm not too sure if it's much of considering what we know and what we like. I feel as if to the point, but the purpose of us being there has been more of just saying have a student representative there, even though you're heavily relying a lot more on surveys rather than the actual representatives. So it doesn't really see, I don't see too much of an impact that us as counselors can do. In a room with, you know, say, and on that committee, I know how on the meeting, we're talking about like at least 20 other individuals in there. And a lot of these individuals are high paying, some individuals are, you know, administration, so you have to, like, essentially a bunch of adults and, you know, you meet, I'm not sure if you guys have this experience, but when there's a lot of adults in the room and like listening to kids. So as much as perspective we can share, I'm not sure how literal we can take, and that's all I do. William?
Yeah, I think a big concern is what happened by actual input from students. I know we got like 1,200 students out of 30,000, which is less than 5%. What happened to that? You know, there's so much more. What is it?
I actually have an update on Telegram Imagine. I talked to Alyssa, the ex-officio for SACAP and the Deputy Chief Activation Officer. And just a little bit of context in her role, the activation officer, Chief Activation Officer is in the line above the Tivoli, I believe. Like the person that the building manager. So I think that this is directly her wheelhouse. She did tell me that the Tivoli project will not have technically a final proposal for the capital until next year. And so we will actually have one more year to get it on this project before it's finalized. However, she did say a lot of the things have already been. In my sort of dissent with it, I sort of had said, and not on behalf of anyone, just me, that I think that at this current moment, it's kind of a really hard ask to have a bunch of student be house dollars go into this renovation and not just the maintenance. And she told me that the student data they like doesn't support my solution. What she said. So it's hard for her to listen to what I have to say in that regard when she's seeing student data coming in, those surveys I was just talked about, saying the opposite. My rebuttal to her was I think that if you phrase the question, do you want, you know, pink flowers or blue flowers, you're not opening the question of not having flowers. And so it's like if you ask, you know, which way do you want it renovated as opposed to do you want it renovated? I think it's the question that I had to ask. I also see a similar thing with SACAP that may be difficult for us to push things through SACAP running this. And I think the TSAC's voice still needs to be heard on that. And I welcome like brainstorming an idea where we're writing a resolution regarding the project. We invite someone to meet with us and see if they will. We can probably get a meeting with the guy who's running it probably. But yeah.
What's CCD? How's CCD? Feel about this?
Now we're getting on the okay. Now we're sort of getting on the like SACAP generally side of things. I don't know where CCD reps are at. I've sort of lost coalition with them for the last like week and a half, and so I can really gain that. Really try doing the networking there to represent TSAC, and in fact, I'll have an update hopefully by next week on that. Thank you.
We were also going to say that, as far as like a meeting with problems, is that is also the person who is setting up the integrated planning group. So if we have specific questions or specific tasks that you would like to get into that, we don't, I believe our next meeting is not until sometime in March. I don't know if they have to talk in that time, but I know it's not that long.
And just I think if really to be productive in this, I feel like we should be discussing whether what is the impact that TSAC has? Is this the impact that we see? Do we want to continue establishing? Is it something that, you know, we want to take the opportunity, even if we're in the room, even if the foot's in the door, continue it? But ultimately, we are being communicated what's coming. There's communication of the plan they're going to. Now, when you have a large scale project that impacts vast amounts of different parts of the community, which you can't remember campus, we are tri-institutional, so not just one university, but 3 universities in one. It's gonna be hard to like all that different data and the input that's in there, because there's a lot of voices to it. How can we help out establish the student voices on behalf of MSU? Is that really sending one individual to speak? Because obviously they don't take the perspective of one individual. They want to see everyone else to say, this is what I want to see. But if no one really participating in that, how are we like really able to do our job? If we're just sending one person to speak on their opinion, which is what they're seeing, they're not really going to take it serious. And if we really want to see this as a concern for a single body, perhaps we could do our own input and allow like a town hall for presenting on behalf of TSAC of what we have been informed of what's going on here. And giving the MSU Denver body to respond what state we want to change. And we can show them, here's our survey of our students of what they think and what we think. Rather than, because if we just continue time back and they're not really paying attention to us, honestly, I don't see the reason why we should continue. No. Sky and Dalton.
I really like the idea of the town hall, collecting more data. Like a survey or something will also be good, but a town hall is pretty efficient, so. People in a room. Could be a good way to go.
Some interesting thing that I've noticed is that I think AHIC's had these town halls, and there's been low engagement there. And I've heard like Carl East is really happy to have like 20 people learning. And I would really love to see us by, if they're providing 1,200 students saying that they want this program. I would like to see if we're genuinely gonna have an opposition stance on this, if that's what comes to pass in some future. I want to see us having, we have to say the opposite. We have data saying we want this instead. Another request that was got, that's just I'm remembering things. Another request from Alyssa to me was to propose other projects that we could be asking the capital department, if we're not gonna be asking the capital department to. And I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts on other projects that we might be asking the capital for money in the like capital, construction side.
Brady, what? No, Dalton. You look like my friend, I'm sorry. You look a lot.
You're saying Dalton, sorry.
Yeah, there's a bunch of underground thermal power projects happening downtown that the state has been funding and planning, and they've actually approached the area. But yeah, that would be a better use of money. I like the environmental aspect of the brand. I will say though, it kind of felt like our response, I don't know what intentions, but to me, it's more like, hey, look over here. Like, hey, ask about these other things. This is that's the vibe. Well, with all the context I've ever had with AHAC and like SACAB and sorry, it's one of them. It was yeah, that's maybe not these comments. It's very different. It was more like, hey, look at the green, this is maybe we'll take you seriously.
Maybe the town hall could be kind of a bigger scale. The proposal of, we could do it of like obviously getting feedback from our own students would be something that we're collaborating rather than AHEC, because they have to really do a good job. We could do our own version, other individuals come and present. And likewise, we could present a potential project that we could pitch to the student populace and that we could bring into it. Because in reality, our job as representatives is to be at the table. But we need to do our job here, and what I'm hearing, what they're kind of using against us, and not really trying to hear us, is that we're not representing that voice in reality, according to the data. So we can provide that data. You can provide the options that they gave us already, because we have gone through, talked to them, had a meeting. Obviously, we have one representatives going to talk, whether that be on behalf of them or us. We actually have information. And we can use that to exhibit options that students can have other than the Tigger Reimagine, and options of what we want to see from Tigger Reimagine, and provide that to them the next time we have this guy, okay?
I know we're running low on time. I also want to know, I just remembered this. I feel my calendar day by day at this point. But me and Will are meeting with President Davidson tomorrow to talk about campus strategy. This meeting came about, it's representing ourselves on sort of side, but this came about from the email that I sent to her regarding Tiller Reimagine with all their CC'd on. Sort of elevating our concerns that I gathered over about a week. And if she requested to meet with us, with me, and I invited her to it. And I am curious if like, it's not necessarily explicitly about Tiller Reimagine, but it's sort of what the underlying thing is. Does CSEC want us to like talk about Tiller Reimagine explicitly at this meeting, like more in depth about like our requests for this? Like how we're worried about that, or generally like planning on the campus and strategy? I don't know what campus plan strategy is supposed to be.
This could be how we go, so.
I guess it seems like it's still our, so let's say there's no reason not to pick up the way we mentioned it's such a big part of overall. It's.
I think this also might be a good time to sort of tie this into the, I know it's, tie this into the, larger question of this, of like, we felt about being listened to all of these different things. But I think it might be time to bring that up in some way.
It is 5:30, we will have a motion. We do have one thing here, and we can table that.
Actually, move to the adjournment of the meeting.
Second. All right, we're gonna motion to adjourn, it's been seconded. Any opposition? Any abstentions? All in favor, say aye. All right, meeting is adjourned.
A point of information to people who know, I also-
Bye, everyone.
I was trying to find it, but I couldn't.
Bye, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.
More fun for sure. About, other projects that like, this ITG group that I'm a part of is already looking at past Ghibli reimagined as things that look like, if we want those as a thing to talk about. I have access to that, I just